Hello, BookTube, and welcome back to DicTember. This is an inaugural BookTube event that I'm a part of, one of the co-hosts, of an event designed to celebrate private eyes, house dicks, gumshoes, and the mysteries that they get embroiled with, as sort of, in my mind, an adjunct to March Mystery Madness, which is still a depressingly long way away. I love reading murder mysteries. I love talking about them, and I have loved delving into the world of private eyes for DicTember. I've been having a blast. I've been reading more than I've been making videos of, and as usual with me, I've been also doing a lot of categorical thinking, cladistic thinking about what we are actually talking about when we talk about private eye fiction, what the allure of it is, the parameters we pretty much have down, right? Somebody, a private individual, a professional, or an amateur who is enlisted, whether they're paid or not, to solve a crime. So the key distinction, the key characteristic of a private eye in a murder mystery is that they are not an official arm of law enforcement. A lot of them work closely with law enforcement. A lot of them are best friends with a person on the force or partners with a person on the force, but they're not themselves part of the force, which I can't help but think becomes more important as the 20th century wears on. But I haven't done the kind of sweeping study that I would need to do in order to really back that up. Other than that, private eye can be anybody. Any kind of gimmick. In fact, the gimmickier the better. What is the gimmick that defines your private eye? They don't just go to the office and work their way through the phone book. They don't just have index cards in their pocket. They're not a hangdog, nondescript individual who's just sort of textbook papier-mâché private eye, like Fig Newton in the Rumpole stories. Instead, when you are a writer and you create a private eye, sort of the challenge is what will set this private eye apart from others, starting with Sherlock Holmes and moving on from there. You don't want to explicitly duplicate anybody's singular gimmick. If you can help it, you don't want to do that. Instead, you want to come up with a singular gimmick of your own, no matter how thin it is. And I've been reading a ton of these things. There are a ton of private eye ongoing series in the murder mystery genre right now, today, in 2022, even though if I had to guess, again, I have not done the actual research to figure it out, but if I had to guess, I would say that the number of actual real-world professional PIs has never been lower than it is now. For the simple reason that $50 and an hour online will usually allow just about anybody to do the work that private eyes used to be the only way to do. They used to be the only avenue for that. Unless you want surveillance photos of someone in order to blackmail them or in order to break the hold of a blackmailer. And even that, is well within the reach of a private individual now, of a normal individual who isn't a private investigator, either through internet searches and Google Earth, which has solved a number of crimes in its time as in existence, or through drone flights. You can get a drone that's as small as a children's plush toy, and pretty much silent, and you can fly it anywhere. The main difference is that licensed private eyes can work in conjunction with law enforcement so that what they find can be used in some legal capacity. Whereas if you're just a straight-up individual and you just decide to stalk someone to find out where they are and what they do, maybe not so much. But those are the gray areas that you get into, especially, I think, in the 21st century, the era of the internet and omnipresent drones. But in the golden age of mysteries, no. In the golden age of mysteries, you have snoops of all kinds poking their way into police investigations. And one of those is the book that I'm going to talk about today, just briefly. I read it. I think this was a reread for me. It didn't ring any bells. I kept expecting it to because I've read a couple of other books by this author. The author is Carolyn Wells, and this is her book Murder in the Bookshop, starring her private eye Fleming Stone, who works with the police in much the same way as we saw the last couple of books that I've talked about for DicTember, in that he basically orders them around. He's he, I guess, has a good enough track record. This book came out in the 1930s. There had been many Fleming Stone novels before it. So maybe he has enough of a track record with the police department so that they sort of take his lead. Stop that. It seems a little odd. I always, when I get to that imperious tone in A Private Eye, especially in the golden age of murder mysteries, I always think, again, I always revert back to The Simple Art of Murder by Raymond Chandler, his great, great essay on the strengths and weaknesses of the murder genre that he was a part of. He has some choice comments to make about what would really happen to an imperious outsider, a civilian, who acted the way Fleming Stone does towards the police if they actually walked into a cop precinct house and started acting that way. And he would know. Still, these can be done really, really well. And Carolyn Wells has her weaknesses as a writer, to put it mildly. She was a librarian for a long time and then came to murder mystery. There's a story, it's too good to be true, it's probably apocryphal, that she is a classic example of one of those kinds of genre writers who got into the genre and became very successful. She wrote dozens and dozens and dozens and dozens of books, and they did well. But her origin story sort of is that she is one of those authors, like David Eddings, for instance, who looked at the success of other writers in the genre and basically said, I can do that. And then proved that it is possible. And this is the story of a middle-aged man who makes a killing in business, and that allows him the financial freedom to indulge in his truest passion, which is rare books, antiquarian books. Now, this is also rare books and books just in general reading is also a passion of Fleming Stone. So he is the perfect guy to gravitate towards the mystery. But this middle-aged financier who is a rare book collector, a rare book speculator and dealer, he has a much younger wife. And she is beautiful. She is clearly bought as a bauble on his arm. There's no love there. And he also has a man of business, a sort of an indexer of his collection, a librarian of his collection, who is also much younger, and who has fallen in love with his wife, and wants, therefore, to tender his resignation. This situation won't work anymore. I'm having conflicted feelings towards your wife, so I obviously can't stay on in your employ. And the older man doesn't care. He cares more about his collection. And they are pursuing the chance, the offer, the rumor of a particularly rare book, a Lewis Carroll volume. I've just got recently a new Lewis Carroll biography, so that struck a note with me. And they go around to the place where the book is supposed to be on, for their examination, but the place is locked, and the owner appears not to be there. And the avid book collector cannot wait, and decides to try to chivvy the lock and work his way in so that he can take a look at the thing. And when the two of them have broken into these premises, the lights go out, and suddenly the younger man, the librarian, the bookkeeper, is chloroformed unconscious. And when he wakes up, his employer is dead, very much murdered. And of course, he's the most likely suspect. It looks, in fact, right from the beginning, as if the crime is largely intended to set him up for murder. And what follows is equal parts high-handed skullduggery on the part of Fleming Stone. He's not the most likable character in the world, I should put it that way. But it's equal parts that and tons of book lore. Because Carolyn Wells was a huge book person, a huge bookworm. In addition to having been a librarian, she was also a book collector and married into a fairly prominent publishing family. She was all about books and loved them. In her defense, she also donated tons and tons of them and was a strong proponent of what we would now in the 21st century refer to as literacy efforts. So that's not, that's not ignoble in any way, and it shows in this book. This is not the only Fleming Stone book, of course, considering his own love of books, where books play a prominent part. The writing is a little wooden, it can be a little wooden at times. And I think this is the first time that I've read this book, but I have read other Fleming Stone books, and in every case, I got the impression that the writer was a little too concerned with being really, really clever than she was with being either believable or interesting. Sometimes that happens. I'm sure you know mystery authors who are like that, right? So it's not fatal by any means. You can still have. I really enjoyed this book. I really did. So it could still be an interesting murder mystery, even though the writer has that kind of look at me, ma, I'm writing kind of attitude to it that tends to take me out of the story. But then again, Golden Age murder mysteries are so incredibly far-fetched that you're pretty much reading them outside of the story anyway. And so that's my report for today. The DicTember, unlike some other reading events that I'm involved in, DicTember is going swimmingly. I absolutely love this. So, and once again, as with so many other authors that I have mentioned in DicTember, I'm really tempted to just keep reading more of this author. But I'm not going to do that. I'm going to try and keep casting a field for the rest of this event. DicTember comes but once a year. So I'm going to wrap this up for now. It's yet another pleasant reading experience, yet another recommend. So I will end this here, and we'll see what comes up next time. Thank you, BookTube.